Hello my Whoop friends. In this video it's about the flight times of 65mm tiny whoops. Or more precisely, it's mainly about the hover flight time of 65mm bind and fly tiny whoops.
In this video I tested the hover flight time of the following 6 different bind and fly tiny whoops. Happymodel Mobula6 2024 V3, Betafpv Air 65 Race Edition, Betafpv Air 65 2 Champion Edition, NewBeeDrone HummingBird RaceSpec V2, NewBeeDrone HummingBird RaceSpec V1, and NewBeeDrone HummingBird V4. In addition, I also show the flight time of a modified NewBeeDrone HummingBird V4 Stage 5 and a Happymodel Mobula6 2024 V3 modified by me to a dry weight of 15.6 grams. I did this test because flight times are always a topic in the FPV community. I chose hover flight time because it is the most comparable metric, and because manufacturers also state hover flight time when they provide flight time figures. Currently, as far as I know, only Betafpv still specifies flight time. And as you can see in this video, the manufacturer's stated flight time matches quite closely with the flight times I achieved in this test. I performed the hover tests indoors at 22 degrees Celsius room temperature with freshly charged Lipos that were also about 22 degrees warm. I fully charged the Lipos to 4.35 volts shortly before each test flight and then flew down to about 3.27 volts. I measured the time from takeoff with a full Lipo to 3.3 volts. In this video, I state the flight time from a full battery at 4.35 volts down to reaching 3.3 volts. The result was not very surprising for me. Among the bind and fly tiny whoops, the Happymodel Mobula6 2024 V3 took first place with a hover flight time of around 5 minutes and 12 seconds. In second place, also not surprising to me, is the Betafpv Air 65 Race Edition with a hover flight time of 5 minutes and 4 seconds. I may talk more about that later in this or in one of the next videos. In third and fourth place, very close together, are the Betafpv Air 65 2 Champion Edition and the NewBeeDrone HummingBird RaceSpec V2 with hover flight times of 4 minutes and 40 seconds and 4 minutes and 38 seconds. It was interesting to see here that the Betafpv Air 65 2 Champion Edition has a solid hover flight time despite its very high KV, which is also confirmed by the highest static thrust of all tiny whoops and can be seen in my large 65mm tiny whoop static thrust test video. The Betafpv Air 65 2 Champion Edition has the highest KV I have ever experienced on a 65mm tiny whoop with 702 motors and still achieves such a good hover flight time. That is interesting to see. In fifth place for bind and fly tiny whoop hover flight times is the NewBeeDrone HummingBird RaceSpec V2 with a hover flight time of 4 minutes and 1 second. In last, sixth place, as expected, is the NewBeeDrone HummingBird V4, which is the heaviest tiny whoop in the group and also the only one equipped with motor connectors. Of the 2 modified tiny whoops, the NewBeeDrone HummingBird V4 Stage 5, modified by me, achieved a hover flight time of 3 minutes and 59 seconds. And the Happymodel Mobula6 2024 V3, modified by me with a dry weight of 15.6 grams, achieved the highest flight time in this test at around 5 minutes and 56 seconds. As you can see, 65mm tiny whoops are still not flight time miracles, but compared to a few years ago, this is a huge improvement. We are slowly approaching the maximum. For further progress, battery technology would need to make a major leap. For my part, I am definitely very happy with the current flight times of 65mm tiny whoops. The conclusion of this large bind and fly 65mm tiny whoop flight time test for me is that the hover flight time of tiny whoops with real-life low KV motors, which have slightly less power, or in other words, less pop and are less snappy, is the longest, which was to be expected, and that the hover flight time of very powerful tiny whoops with high KV motors is the shortest, but still surprisingly good thanks to 96 kHz Blue Jay ESC firmware. And the new 12-amp ESCs with large 3x3mm MOSFETs also seem to have a positive effect on flight time. AWG-20 main power wires and directly soldered motor connections also have a positive impact on flight time. That was also expected. A lower dry weight of the tiny whoop is of course also beneficial, as well as modern ultralight low-pitch propellers. The ideal LiPo size for 65mm tiny whoops still seems to be 300 to 330 milliamp hour LiPos in terms of flight time, and 260 to 280 milliamp hour LiPos for special applications like very small and tight racetracks and for a very light flight feel. Honestly, I didn't learn much new from this flight time test. I mainly did it for you, my whoop friends. I hope you appreciate it. It was very boring. Even in 2026, there is still no miracle 65mm whoop that flies for 10 minutes. That is still far away, and only possible with completely different batteries that are at least twice as powerful, or with modern, very lightweight 75mm tiny whoops like the Air 75 Race from Betafpv. But even there, only with major compromises in durability. If you're interested in my over 11-minute record flight with the Air 75, then check out my video on that topic. For me personally, and my freestyle racing flight style, which you can see in my videos, flight time is almost never above 3 minutes. My average flight time with 75mm and 80mm whoops is between 2 minutes 30 seconds and 3 minutes. And with 65mm tiny whoops, I'm already very happy if I reach 2 minutes 30 seconds. The average flight time in my flights with 65mm tiny whoops is about 2 minutes. If I fly full send with high kV motors, then it's about 1 minute and 30 seconds. And if I fly more relaxed, then at most 2 minutes 30 seconds. No matter which tiny whoop. If the tiny whoop is more efficient, then I use the additional power for faster flying. That's why the flight time always stays about the same for me. That is the harsh reality, my whoop friends. That's why it's worth investing in 2 good 6-port chargers with storage function and buying at least 12 high-quality LiPos. For example, the 75C or 95C LiPos from Tatu, the 80C LiPos from NewBeeDrone, or the 95C Lava 2 LiPos from Betafpv, which I personally prefer at the moment. I wish you a lot of fun flying tiny whoops, my whoop friends. If my work here on YouTube has value for you, you are welcome to support me financially on my Ko-Fi.com website or order your FPV products through my affiliate links. You can find the links in the video description of this video. Happy flying, my whoop friends. If you want more flight time with your tiny whoop, there are 2 options. Either you modify your tiny whoop, which means making it lighter, installing motors with lower kV, and trying to reduce electrical resistance by soldering the motor wires instead of using connectors, and by installing an AWG20 main power wire with a good modern main connector like BT 2.0 or NX69. Or you convert your tiny whoop to the next larger whoop size. That does not always work, but sometimes it does. Like in this case, where I converted the NewBeeDrone HummingBird V4 65mm tiny whoop to 75mm size, using a lightweight Betafpv Air 75 2-whoop frame and HQ Prop ultralight 40mm 2-blade propellers. The flight time increased by about 25 seconds with the same NewBeeDrone Nitro Nectar Gold NX69 300 mAh LiPo. The flight behavior is of course no longer the same as before and is difficult to describe, but I will try. The whoop feels very floaty, which is not surprising with such a very low disk load, and it feels slightly overpropped, which is also not very surprising. That means in slaloms it does not feel as snappy, but in other flight maneuvers it feels very good. I would say that in the first minute, the whoop converted to 75mm flies slightly better than the 65mm version of this whoop, but after that slightly worse because of the stronger voltage sag. Thanks to modern LiPos with very high C rate, like the Lava 2 95C LiPos from Betafpv, this voltage sag can be reduced, but it will never reach the level of the 65mm whoop. So who is this conversion worth it for? I would say for pilots who mainly cruise or want to practice simple, smooth flight maneuvers and racing or freestyle exercises, this conversion to 75mm whoop size can be worthwhile. Personally, I prefer the slightly more consistent flight behavior of the 65mm version of this whoop over the entire flight time. That is why I converted the whoop back to 65mm size. But the whoop converted to 75mm really does not fly badly either, as you will hopefully see in the following chapters of this video. And since the conversion is very easy and can also be reversed easily, I can recommend this modification just for the reason of flying and experiencing a tiny whoop with very low disc load. If I personally were to fly this 75mm whoop, I would probably use the new ultralight 3-blade propellers from Gemfan, which are even lighter than the 2-blade propellers, as well as the Lava 2 280 mAh 95C or 320 mAh 95C Lipos from Betafpv. I hope I was able to inspire you with this video to try something new and gain new experiences. Sometimes it is important to overcome your laziness and simply try things, even if in the end it might not be the right thing. But once you gain the experience, no one can take it away from you. And only through experience do you really progress and become more experienced. Experience comes from gaining experience, not from chilling on the sofa. Let's go, my whoop friends. I wish you a lot of fun gaining experience.
Some additional information can be found in the video description. Please watch my many other tutorials on this YouTube channel if you want to know more about how to modify a tiny boop or how to learn FPV flying and racing.